It is absolute povo spec. That little hinge is the world's winningest hinge. Pure, unadulterated driving pleasure. Rubber. I've never had that in a car before. Oh, that's the sound of quality. Welcome back to Mortals and Motors. Today, we're going on a W-Reg adventure. And it is a W-Reg adventure because we are taking my W-Reg Volvo 345 to go and possibly purchase another W-Reg car. But I'm not going to tell you what it is quite yet, but I will give you a few clues. So it is the base model because, you know, base models is what I'm for here. It is German made, but the fact that it is a German made car is probably not something that is generally kind of thought of about this car, but it is German made. It has a stupid design feature that only the base model has. And that is why I am buying it, hopefully. And here we are. We've arrived to go and see the car, and this is it. This is a 1981 Vauxhall Astra, and it is the base model because, you know me, I love a base model. So I've just taken it round the corner to kind of have a little drive and to show you around it. I don't know where to begin. There's so much to say. Shall we begin with the most important aspect of this car, which is round the back? Follow me. That little hinge there. That little hinge is the world's winningest hinge because this is not a hatchback. Even though it looks like a hatchback, and Mark 1 Astras are generally hatchbacks, but the base model is in fact a saloon. So let's get it open. Oh, the joy. Who would have a mid-range, mid-sized family hatchback that's not a hatchback? I adore it. It's so stupid. And that is why I have to have this car. So let's show you around the car a little bit more. Inside we have basically nothing. It is absolute povo spec. So we have got blanking plates galore where the clock and the radio should be and various other buttons. No lid for the glove box, no rev counter, no center console, no radio, no headrests, no door pockets, no sound deadening, just pure unadulterated driving pleasure. Although it is a 1200 engine, so that came from the Vauxhall Viva, so driving pleasure is possibly a little bit strong. One of the things that the car shouldn't have is a passenger door mirror, but of course it does have one. Luckily, the seller has the blank. Ah! I'm so happy about that. Right, let's close the door. Oh, that's the sound of quality. That's GM quality, finest. All right, let's get in the driver's seat. So the sellers showed me around the car and told me a few of its quirks and features. One of them being that it has an offset key, not centralised, and it only goes in one way in all the locks. So I need to be very careful which way it goes in. I think it's this way. Yeah. Right, inside the car then, we have a sea of basicness. But as well as that, we have a very basic gearbox. It's a very, I'm told it's a very low ratio gearbox. So I'm really looking forward to the hour journey home on a dual carriageway in fourth, where he said that essentially you go from first to fourth and it'll be absolutely fine. So how many RPMs do we reckon? 5,000? I don't know. Maybe not that much. Steering wheel's actually a softer feel steering wheel than I was expecting. I thought it would be hard plastic. It's also quite canted towards me. It's very, very vertical, so it feels quite close to me. It's very light though, having driven it around here. Definitely very light steering. Feels like power steering, but it's obviously not. We do have two sun visors. It's not quite as poverty as a Fiesta Popular from its same sort of era. No rear wiper, obviously, because it's a saloon, but we do have a heated rear window. Don't know if it works. Really need to give that window a clean before potentially driving it home if I buy it. For some reason, it's a Mark 1 Astra thing. These vents don't actually move. There's no movements on the side vents, but the centre ones do. The centre ones obviously move around as normal. We've got the cool little pull-out switches here. So it's got a 3-speed fan, luxury, with a pull-out for the heated rear window. But because it's the base model, none of these controls are illuminated at night. So if you're looking for a heater control or your heated rear window or whatever, no, not backlit whatsoever in the base model, they're just painted on. And that is the sort of thing I love about base models, because the manufacturer has gone to a greater effort to make the car worse than simply just producing the same thing for all of their models. And that is, for me, what makes base models just so fascinating. Same thing with the saloon lid on this. To make it feel more basic, they make it not a hatchback by engineering a whole new kind of rear body shell. It's nuts, but I love it. Over on this side, so we can see the dashboard. So it's done 7,890 something miles. It actually hasn't. That's 107,090 something, because on the MOT history it's gone down about 92,000 miles in 1 year, so it's just gone round the clock. This is the light switch, and one of my favourite features of kind of GM cars from this period is that when you pull it out, it operates the courtesy light. Hey! Right, let's have a quick look under the bonnet. Let's figure out where this releases on a car that I've never seen before. Oh, there it is. Okay. Right, let's find the right catch. Ooh, actually, it's reasonably heavy for a kind of crappy little car from the 80s. Where does it go? In there. Okay, so under the bonnet we have a 1.2 litre engine, which is originally launched in 1962 and was in the Viva and various other things, but was actually used until 93 in the Nova. So it was kind of a proper 80s engine for GM and Vauxhall, etc. There's nothing else of any great excitement in the engine bay. There's an alarm system that the seller has fitted. I don't know whether I'll keep that or not. I'll give it some thought. The only downsides that I can see to the car, having had a really good look around it, is the condition of it. It is in kind of original repaired condition. It's been apparently a daily driver until about 10 years ago with the original owner, which is a great sort of thing that I really like. And he's kept it alive, but obviously it has had quite a lot of MOT patches over time. There's quite a few inside the inner wings and the engine bay, and the rear wheel arches also look pretty scabby and still do look scabby. It's had new wings, front wings on both sides, and I think in the right light the colour match isn't quite right, but that's fine. It adds, I think, to its charm. So with that in mind, I think I need to go and, as Mike Brewer says, going to go and bid him. And I am safely home with my Astra. It drove really well all the way here. It was near Ipswich, so it was about an hour's journey back home on the A14, and drove absolutely fine. I think the only issues I discovered whilst driving it is that it's a little bit stiff going into first sometimes, so I don't quite know whether it needs a new gearbox oil or whether the synchro is a little bit worn on first. Driver's door window is very, very stiff, so that needs to be taken off the door card and just grease it all up. Bizarrely, the driving experience is actually really good. I was not expecting that at all. It's actually quite pokey. I thought that the 1.2 would be really, really slow because the 1.3 has, I think, 25 odd more horsepower than this. But it's absolutely fine. It pulls really, really well in all the gears. It's not as noisy at speed as I was perhaps fearing. It is. I mean, it's noisy, but it's no worse than the 340 or any of my other 80s cars. Yeah, it's nippy, it's pokey. The gear change is quite nice, apart from into first. Steering is lovely. It's so precise and light. It's way different to the Volvo steering, because obviously I drove the green car to Ipswich this morning to go and collect this, and the steering on that is so vague and woolly, and this isn't. In terms of the ride, it is really quite firm compared to the 340. Probably not firm compared to a modern car, but it's still, you know, pretty compliant and firm. Definitely feels German, I would say, which is not a surprise really, given that it is actually German. Anyway, on that note, let's have a little look around it in slightly greater detail, and show you kind of all the little bits and pieces that might need doing, mainly as a little bit of a preservation exercise, so that I've got some evidence of exactly what it looked like when I got it, before I start doing a few bits and pieces to it to improve it. So here we go. Well, I mean, the first thing that you can obviously see is that this wheel arch here is yeah, not in the very best of conditions. I have a new panel that's in the boot for it, so at some point it will need to be cut out and welded a new one on. However, for the moment, I think it's actually, I put a magnet on it and it's really not that bad. There's only a small few sections that actually have filler, so I think I'll strip it down, treat the rust, and maybe just fill it in parts for now, just to keep it kind of tidy. The fuel cap, I believe, is not original because it's a locking one, and it should have a non-locking one. Some of the things I love, like the doors here, there's so much bare metal on show, even down the bottom where there should be door pockets. There's even the A-pillar is bare metal, which is, I've never seen a car with bare metal A-pillars before. The window winders are actually soft touch rubber. I've never had that in a car before. The knob certainly is. Interior upholstery needs a really good clean. I'm going to get the wet vac on it and see if it'll come up. I don't think it's too bad. There's that kind of bit of damage there, but I mean, it is 40 odd years old and has been a daily driver, so it's not doing too badly, but I think I'll give it a bit of a wet vac. There are a few cigarette burns as well, so I think clearly the car has been smoked in at some stage. I'm missing the cover for the seat belt there. It should look like this, which is the passenger one. I'm also missing the press symbol for the driver's seat belt, but again, that's not a major thing. I think I'm missing a rubber on the accelerator pedal, but then it is textured, so maybe it's supposed to be like that. Maybe somebody will know. The previous owner has fitted a cable here that trails to the back there for a 12-volt socket. Nice idea, but I wonder if I can execute it slightly differently so that it's not quite so obvious. I shall give that some thought. In the rear, it's a similar sort of story. The upholstery is actually in pretty good nick. I would say from feel that is definitely some nylon. So considering that, it's in incredibly good condition. It's probably faded a bit along the top here, but really not bad at all. This is sort of the exciting bit of this car, because this is the kind of proper parcel shelf for a saloon. It's the bit that renders this car completely impractical, but it's why I love it. I absolutely love these grills on these Mark 1 Astras. I've always loved those, they're kind of iconic. Let's take you around the back, and that obviously shows that it's the 1200. That's the old number plate. Astra E, so E is the trim level, which is the base. I think at this time it would have been EL and GL, something like that, can't quite remember. Let me get this boot open. It's actually got a bit of spring action to it. Up it goes. And that's the inside of the boot. It kind of reminds me of an Austin Allegro in terms of the boot opening. It really is pretty impractical. And you can really see from the side view here how little that boot opening opens into the body of the car. And how, you know, if it was a 3-box saloon, a proper one, then you could kind of look down onto your luggage, whereas here you're kind of needing to crouch and put it kind of sideways. So yeah, a bit like a GS or something like that. There is inside the boot some evidence of rust. So down in the kind of the little wells, there's some rust there. And quite a bit of rust down on this one here. You may not be able to see on camera, but there is some daylight just under there. It might not come through, but there is. Otherwise it's in pretty good condition. It has got rear seat belts fitted, and they are General Motors ones, so they are correct. It wouldn't have had them as standard, but it must have had them added at some stage. The rear lights have got GB on both sides, stickers. I wonder whether that is because these are different British market ones that are fitted to it. I don't know. Having said that though, they still have a kind of clip-on fog light, which is normal for these, but you'd think if they had specific GB clusters we might have the fog light in the cluster, but there we are. It has had a new exhaust recently, but it is an exhaust from a 1300. The only difference being is that the bore is 1mm bigger. So it's, you know, that is slightly annoying me, but you know, we'll live with that. I think he said that a 1200 exhaust is impossible to find. Over on this side, it's pretty much the same story. This wheel arch is much more solid than the other one. Inside the rear, you've got again that lovely upholstery. These floor mats are aftermarket, but they're very kind of period 80s. Oh, as are these mud flaps. So these mud flaps I think are aftermarket 80s mud flaps. The headlining has quite a bit of kind of, I think, glue seepage happening around the edges, but I think there's nothing much that can be done about that. Interestingly, there are no grab handles in this car, only a little hook on each side. The door handles on this side of the car have faded to kind of a grey, so they could probably do with a coat of paint with a bit of satin black or something like that. Passenger compartment, passenger side. So the I'll do a proper review of the car and how everything works in a separate video, but the lever for the seat is here, not in the front, which took me a while to find. The saloon obviously comes with no glove box lid, and in fact this whole thing is a different kind of insert, because there'd be holes where the hinges would be and where the kind of the drop down things that hold it in place would be. So that's all been covered up by this kind of insert, which is quite fun. We have no centre console, nothing on the floor. Up there we have the blanking plates. So one of the things I might plan on doing with this is to actually put in a radio, a period aftermarket radio. I think that might be quite fun. I've got some proper aftermarket shelf mounted speakers that I think might look quite cool up on there, so I'll try those out and see what I think of them. The dashboard itself is in really good condition. There's no kind of tears in the vinyl or anything like that, other than kind of just these ducts here. The vinyl's kind of unpeeled itself a little bit, but that's hardly very much. The current owner has fitted an alarm, so you can see the little sensors there, and I think they're apparently also linked to the door jambs, so probably will keep that, but I'll see how I feel. Looking underneath, there's quite a bit of bodywork that just needs tidying up. Some paint looks like it's been applied with a paintbrush. There's a mixture of metal. I think it is metal here, everything kind of held up to a magnet, so it really isn't that horrendous, but it just needs to be tidied so that it doesn't rust any further. The front bumper is actually a little bit wonky. I thought it was a number plate that was wonky, but it's actually the entire bumper, so I might see if I can, it's lower on the right hand side, I'll see if I can, if there's an adjustment somewhere. That front valance has had a lot of repairs in the past as well, some better quality than others, so yeah. The joy of round lights, and there's even little draining holes there so that water doesn't kind of build up, which is lovely. The previous owner reckoned that this was actually built as an Opel and shipped over to the UK, and then they rebadged it as a Vauxhall, because he says that the Opels would have had 2 towing eyes, but when it was for the Vauxhalls they only had the one, I think, because the Opels were designed for both left and right hand drive, whereas obviously the Vauxhalls would have only been right hand drive. So looking under the very heavy bonnet, I need to have a look at that gear change and see whether I can improve it at all. The rocker cover gasket I think might be weeping very slightly. We'll have a look at that. There's a fuel filter that's been put there, an inline fuel filter, which is a great idea, but I kind of wonder whether it's not quite the best position in the world, and maybe it should be not directly on top of the engine. I'll give that a proper look. I think it's on points, but I haven't checked yet. I will have a look. The electric fan does kick in. I heard it kick in, so that's great. Oh, the bonnet stay should have a little catch in that little square hole to hold it, but it's not there. Bonnet itself has a few little spots of rust there on the underside too, so they need to be just treated and taken care of. There's a little bit of rust up in that corner of the scuttle that again needs treatment. And this is kind of where the car gets let down a little bit. There is quite a lot of rust repairs have been done in the engine bay. There, around there, and on the same on that side. So it's kind of been slightly rebuilt in parts, this engine bay. I mean, they don't seem rusty. It seems quite tidy. They just haven't been completely ground down, so they are fairly obvious. But, well, it's a 41-year-old car that was an economy car that was definitely not designed to survive this long. Adam Opel AG was the manufacturer, and it is made in West Germany. Well, I think that's about it for this video, introduction to my little Astra. I'll do another video with a proper kind of review and show how the controls work and how it drives. But for now, thank you for watching. Hope you like the car. Leave a comment if you want to, and I'll see you again in the next video. Bye.